Alrighty then, what's going on?
right.
It's Bosco, and here with Zach.
What's going on?
It's alright.
We're here for the film review, our weekly film review.
Our weekly film review.
We're doing Sideways.
We're doing Sideways.
Tonight.
we had a couple of drinks.
Yeah.
You know.
How do you watch Sideways and not drink wine?
Yeah,
That's why
know.
when you suggested this one, I thought it was a great idea because we were, I wasn't down for a little bit too much of a heady film.
Yeah, we didn't want to be too like it. It's a little snobbish, We don't want something too fucking, highfalutin or fucking, We just wanted just a nice, easy listening.
How do you watch this film and not buy a bottle of Pinot Noir for it?
Yeah, exactly. So,
All right, so go ahead.
We've both seen this movie before, so it's not like, and also just like a side note, we do these like right after we watch it.
Yeah, when my mom gave in and finally listened to one about our films, and I like made it. I was telling her, I'm like, look, we don't take time to like sit down and like write out stuff. This is like right after the movie.
Rip.
Yeah, like post viewing discussion. Yeah, first reactions.
We actually fucked up because we were gonna do one on Gangs in New York, but the thing is that we didn't do it the night of, and then we thought about doing it like a couple nights later. Yeah, when we met
up a few days later, we're just like, let's watch one right now. A new one, a fresh one.
Yeah, exactly. So,
that's how we do our film reviews. It's very off the cuff, very first impressions type style, and I like it that way. I like just watching a film and just sitting down and being like, what'd you think? Like right off the bat, I think it makes it a little bit more natural. And you don't have the time to really sit down and like get deep into it.
Fucking jerk each other off. All right, so this
Sideways. Released in 2004. Alexander Payne directed it. It's based off of the novel.
Did you like how I knew that right off top without even looking?
Yeah, impressive.
That's right.
Did you see that in the opening title?
No.
Subtitle crawl?
It's my movie, Autism.
Good. It's come in handy. It's based off of the novel by Rex Pickett, same name as the film. And it stars Paul Giamatti in the leading role as Miles, Jack Cole Thomas Hayden Church as Jack Cole, and also Sandra Oh and Virginia Madsen. The film is about Miles, who's a wine enthusiast, and Jack, who is getting married. And they're going on like I guess like a little, because they're very aged characters, right? We were saying that initially.
Yeah, this movie revolves around basically two dudes having a midlife crisis.
Yeah, they're very aged, they're very weathered, and they're kind of, I guess, like they're kind of going on a bachelor party, but it was just like, it's not really like a party, it's just the two of them. They like in the beginning, Miles, when he's going out there, he's like, let's just drink good wine, let's eat some good food and play some golf and then come back and chill, But Jack's like, no, I want to get, you're gonna get laid.
We're all
and also laid. I'm getting laid. We're all getting laid.
Hey everybody, we're gonna get laid.
In doing this recording, I just came back from a trip, and there's something about traveling, about being on a trip or a vacation, that just makes me, and I think others, very thirsty. I'll go on a trip.
Yeah, you were with all dudes too.
I'll be there,
so there's just a bunch of thirsty dudes around a campfire.
Every girl that comes past, I'm like, let me say hello, and then, but that's kind of how Jack is the whole time. Like as soon as they go into a restaurant, in the first restaurant they go into, he's like,
he lives a life.
He sees the waitress, and he's like, oh, what do you think of her? And he's like, oh, Miles responds, he's like, isn't she a bit too young for you? But he knows what he wants, even though he's engaged and like a week away from his wedding.
Well, let's talk about what we like about it. All right, we don't need to do a whole, but that's like just basically that's a synopsis. Like that's what happens in the movie. But I guess part of the reason why I like it is that like the feelings of being a failure. That is what I get from this movie a lot is like someone who has a lot of regrets about life and someone who regrets a lot of the decisions he makes. It feels like, he's like almost just like a victim of circumstance.
One thing before you go on, one thing I want to say about this film is, while watching it, I was thinking this. I'm like, this is like a rom-com done right. Like, I don't watch rom-coms
cheese dick
a lot, but this is it is a romantic comedy, but it's done very right.
Yeah.
And that the characters are like, they're silly, but they're not outlandish. They're both relatable in their own ways.
Yeah.
And
one of them's a himbo.
Yeah, he's definitely like a bimbo airhead, but they're both failed in their own ways too, because where Miles is kind of like a failed writer, wine enthusiast, but has like nothing to really show for it. He tells Maya in one of those scenes that he says like, oh, I don't really have an impressive collection. I kind of live bottle to bottle, and Jack himself too is like kind of like a washed up actor. Like everybody that sees him is like, oh yeah, remember you from a decade ago on TV, and now he's just doing commercials.
Yeah, and he was a fucking soap opera actor. I mean, think about like that's the caliber we're dealing with here. But yeah, I think it's like, I think it's a real relatable feeling to like, feel like that you failed life, that you've done nothing right, and then everyone else around you is just like kind of a constant reminder that you are a failure, and it's like it's hard to get out of that mire, and I can really relate with that, honestly. I can, and it's not about like like he does give into that like defeatist like like, man, fuck it, I'm just a loser, whatever. But I think that's like super relatable.
Well, I agree. I think one thing I think is in a recurring theme of this film is like, I think both characters get caught up in lies. Obviously, they're both kind of like I don't know if I would say put on airs, but like. Like his friend.
Well, the guy Miles is a fucking snob. He's a snob.
Oh, did you notice how he used like every now and then he drops some like big vocab word,
Yeah, it's like, all right, dude, we get it. You probably got like one of those calendars where it's like you rip one page and it's like, oh hey, this is the word of the day, and then boom, you think you're fucking smart or some shit.
You think you're fucking smart.
You think you're fucking smart.
What does he say that he says is he uses a different word for a slaughterhouse, like an obriere or something?
An actuary?
An actuary, something. Yes, yeah. I think that's what it was, an actuary.
It's like, bro, all right, we get it.
Like literally his friend turns around and is like, what is that?
Reading shit, you fucking smart.
But, yeah, what I was getting at is, they push Miles at least, or I'm sorry, Jack pushes how Miles is getting published, and he's like, well, and he keeps trying to like correct him kind of every time he brings it up from the beginning when he's meeting, Jack's fiance's family. He's like, well, it's in the process, it's in the works. And then as it goes on and on, when he tells the girls, oh, Miles is getting published, he's a published author. Basically, he's like outright saying, he's like, he's published for sure, like, and he's like, well, kinda, it's not really, my agent, and then when he's talking to Miles later on, he's like, look, my agent just sent it up the chain to be reviewed by a senior editor. It's not like any guarantee or anything. And you pointed out, you're like, isn't that kind of a shitty position he's putting him in? Yeah. Like being like, yeah, you're being published. You're a published author now. And he's like, I've told you, I'm not published yet. It's just possibly, and towards the end, it's revealed that he finally gets a hold of his agent, and she's like, yeah, sorry, we're not actually gonna publish you, and It's, you know, just the way it happens. Sometimes you write something good and it just doesn't work out. It doesn't get published.
Sometimes it just doesn't work out.
Well, you know,
that's the story of my life.
And in watching that, thinking that we were gonna record after watching this, I was like, man, there's a lot to be said there for like creating something and then like, you know, I guess having high hopes or whatever, just you know, and then it kind of fizzling out and just coming to nothing.
That was almost this podcast. That was almost us doing a podcast.
I'm still worried. That's what's.
Yeah, we're sticking with it. We're doing it every week.
Yeah.
So far. But you know, like for the longest time, like, you know, me and you, we've always talked about like creative endeavors that we've always wanted to do and shit like that, and we even like. When we were living together, we were like, oh yeah, let's just sit down and write. Yeah, that never fucking happened.
Well, there's something about like pursuing a creative profession that is like, it has a lot. There's like you can always like look and see like best case scenario. Yeah, best case scenario I think is at the front of your mind when you start, and then. Obviously, most of the time it comes to nothing, and you kind of just live your life pursuing, you know, you want to be a writer, you want to be a musician, you want to be an actor, you know, and you chase it, and in your
for the longest time,
you know, you can always see the goal line or what your ultimate end game is, but you know, you get older and nothing's happening, nobody's taking note, it's not going anywhere, you know, and it's just the life of a creative is like. Kind of sad in that fact, and I think it kind of leads you into this spiraling thought that like Miles has, where he's just like, I'm a loser, I'm washed up, my work sucks, I'm not that smart, I'm not that creative, I'm not offering anything that's worth publishing, that's worth being read or listened to or watched or whatever it may be.
I mean, dude, that's how I thought, you know, I thought I wanted to do stand-up comedy for the longest time, but then I just realized, you know, I wasn't really right for it, you know.
Was that your ending? You don't pursue stand-up comedy anymore?
No, not really.
Why not?
I mean, I've thought about it from time to time, but it's just like no real good bits ever really came to me. There was like a couple of ideas, but that I kind of held on to, and I kind of thought maybe they could turn into something, but nothing really ever materialized, and that was like a very discouraging thought because, you know, it's like you think, oh, I'm this creative person and, you know, what have you, but at the same time it's like,
and you can write something that's worth people's time.
Exactly. You know, I don't want to waste anybody's fucking time.
I think that's what Miles feels like he has, or I think he's back and forth with that on this idea when he has his manuscript and his potentially going to be published novel. He's like, you know, maybe it's good, maybe it's worth being published and worth people reading it, but maybe it's not. Is that what happened to you in regards to pursuing stand-up? Or?
I don't know. I just at a certain point when you don't feel like, I mean, at least this guy had an idea. You know, he had an idea. For me, it was just like, you know, going, you know, I like how David Lynch likes to, this kind of a side tangent, but after watching Mulholland Drive, I went down like a real deep like David Lynch hole because I love the guy, you know, and I think his perspective on like creating and I find really fascinating. And one of the things, you know, he talks about like ideas, and he's like, you know, you know, a lot of ideas come, but like, you know, and when you have like kind of like a writer's block, it could feel like nothing's gonna happen, but then something will happen out of nowhere. But the thing is I remember one of the things he's like, you have to write any idea that comes to mind down, or else the loss of that feeling, the loss of that idea is could lead to something as serious, tantamount to suicide.
Yeah. I remember hearing you tell me about that when you showed me that clip. To bring it back to the movie,
Yeah.
do you think it seems like Miles has given up, right? Like he's
Right.
reached a point where he's like, okay, I'm not good at this. I suck, and I'm giving up. But his friend, I like this in the movie. They're different attitudes on things. His friend was still very gung ho. He still had like a very, up and at him, go getter attitude. Despite being a washed up actor, in his mid 40s, he still had a go out there and chase it attitude, which I thought was interesting because despite the fact that Jack is more of the bimbo type, where he's the less thoughtful, the less whatever, quote unquote, the lesser of the intellectuals between them, his attitude was a little bit more positive and passionate in a way, where Miles, he may have had a passion, but he felt like a failure in it, in his passion, and because of that he kind of let it go, let it slip away.
Yeah.
In the movie it's never really explicitly stated. Like the end scene, he's back there in the middle school classroom because he tells his friend at the end, he's like, I'm not a great writer, I'm just a middle school English teacher, and he's back there in the classroom, listening as the kid reads, and it's never really explicitly stated whether he continues to try to write, but at the end it does leave with some type of, it leaves you with like a glimmer of hope. He returns to Maya's house to knock on her door, and it cuts out there. But do you think he returned to writing? Do you think he went back, or do you think he gave up and moved on?
I don't think that really even matters, to be honest.
No? Why not?
Maybe he did, but
well, you kept saying he would just to live in the moment. Maybe pursuing things.
I think this is gonna sound weird, but I think this movie is like kind of like you can kind of read like a philosophical take out of it.
I think that
basically they're like juxtaposed to each other. So one's like too much of an optimist, which is Jack, and one is too much of a cynic, which is Miles.
Well, you kept saying it was a story of the Chad and the Virgin.
The Chad and the Virgin, yeah. I'm going on a road trip through Santa Rosa. Shouts out to my old stomping grounds.
I think they weren't in Santa Rosa.
What?
They weren't in Santa Rosa.
Oh, I thought they were.
No, they were like near Santa Barbara, the Paso Robles wine region.
I got you. Anyway, well, I guess I was just thinking wine country. That's where I went to school. I went to school, in wine country, so it reminded me of school a little bit.
You studied horticulture there?
No, I didn't. I studied criminal justice. Yeah.
Close enough.
Anyway, we're off the rails on this one.
Keep going. I still got stuff.
Well, so like it's like a philosophy of being so cynical that you think that everything's just gonna end in failure, and then missing out on something possible, which is something for sure that's happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like also like being too positive and being too much of just like kind of like a free spirit could lead you to like kind of like
destruction, recklessness,
yeah, and it's like
self-sabotage,
right
becomes
it's it's like how people living their lives with that philosophy have like kind of ended up at the end of their life, not the end of their life, in the midway of their life.
Well, that reminds me of what I think is the overlying idea of this film. I think what you just said is applied in both these characters' love life. I think everything they go through with, whether it's shown through the wine or their different attitudes, like it's kind of how they approach their love lives, where
oh shit.
Jack's much more reckless. He's getting engaged, but he's out there, on this trip a week before his wedding, trying to get laid, having a relationship with someone.
Hell yeah, brother.
Where on the other end, Miles is a lot more hesitant, a lot more tentative, and is like, he's the one who's divorced and, is alone and, should have the attitude that Jack has. Jack should be the role should be reversed, really. Like, Miles should be the one who's the more like, oh, I'm going to try and talk to the girls here. I'm going to try and pursue something or whatever. But he's the more, reserved one, where Jack is the one who's out and trying to, pursue relationships, on the side, obviously. But, like, I like this film because it's a very lovesick film. I have that tattooed on me,
I know,
and I
was
love.
literally just thinking that.
I love a lovesick story, and I love like,
I love love. I love love. Let me tell you, if there's one thing I love more than anything, it's love. All right.
I love a story that can just like, I don't know, that can bring that
I'm one of the best lovers out there. Let me tell you.
that can bring that, like, I don't know, that love sickness to the surface, where, like, clearly Miles is like, his divorce from his ex-wife has left him just like broken.
Yeah.
He's broken, and he's out there like, like, I've given up, whether it is with his art, his writing, or in his love life. He's just like, I've given up, there's no point. And a lot of it has like kind of like seethed in him, and it's a lot of it's turned to anger and frustrations, and he's just there like, oh yeah, like, fuck my ex-wife, and all I have left now is the wine. The wine never leaves,
Yeah, and for me, all
you
I have
ever
left is
see someone go through a breakup or yourself go through a breakup, and they're all like, you know what, like, alcohol's always there, or whatever their drug of choice, or whatever their vice of choice is. The food never leaves. The food's always there for me, or the pot's always there for me. Like, after they go through a breakup, like, his relationship with wine kind of has that vibe, where he's like, at least the wine is still there for me. At least, the wine doesn't change who it is. The wine doesn't switch up.
But then
on
you
me.
just realize it's an empty endeavor just to distract you from the point that you're miserable and that you are cynic. Am I reading too much into this?
No, I don't think so. I think the reason this film is obviously about, different approaches to romance, and the wine is kind of there as a metaphorical device to tell, the scene when they all go back to the house together, and right away, Jack starts hooking up with,
starts getting it in.
Yeah, they start hooking up together, and Miles and Maya go out there, and she's like, what do you like about, Pinot Noir? What do you like about it? And he tells her, he's like,
it can only grow in certain areas.
Yeah, it's very temperamental.
It's temperamental.
Yeah,
it needs a lot of care.
Yeah,
handle with care.
It's a very temperamental grape, and but when there's the right touch, the right person, the beauty comes up. The full potential is realized.
Let me tell you about the beauty of the vino.
and then it can express itself in the full manner. He says kind of that it can express the full flavors. It can express itself when it has the right conditions, when the right person is watching it and the right conditions are present. The full expression of the grape can come into existence, and it is the best wine because of that, and Maya listens to that, and then she has her, so obviously, like, he's speaking metaphorically too in that, he's like, he's speaking about himself, like, obviously, and then Maya responds by talking about her experiences with wine, where
I'll tell you this, this movie made me feel old.
It does kind of like give you, like, if you're in that point in your life where you've pursued some passion project or creative endeavor or whatever, and you weren't successful, like it is kind of one of those movies that kind of weighs on you, like watching it, like like I didn't I'm a failure.
And there's some good cringe. There's some good quality cringe in this movie for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, like not like on purpose, like not like like it was bad. You know what I mean? Like cringe, purposed scenes.
Yes. Yeah. But Maya responds by telling Miles that, she got in the wine because, with the last man she was with, through the wine, she realized something about herself that, she had a good sense of a good quality wine,
nice
and that she realized the man she was with was a fraud and didn't understand it.
I know that's right.
And, that she had, a deeper appreciation, basically telling Miles, like, in a way, like, they were both, you said this during the scene, like, it was like two broken-hearted people.
Two broken toys.
Yeah, like, kind of connecting in some way, And then, obviously, Miles ruins the moment when, she kind of starts...
He pulls a major virgin move. Major virgin move.
You're familiar with those?
I mean, oh come on, dude! You can act like you've never ruined a moment.
Of course, they're both like Miles is super relatable. Like him letting a breakup and a heartache weigh on him heavy and him carrying it everywhere, and letting it dominate him is very relatable, and also like. When you start to have a connection with somebody, like pulling away instantly when a moment starts to arise that may leave you vulnerable or may leave you like feeling awkward, you like pull away immediately, and then you realize what you did, and you have that moment where you go into the bathroom and you're splashing the water in your face. You're like, you're a fucking loser. You had it there in the bag, but you messed it up.
Well, I've definitely been the drunk dial before.
You've done the drunk dial?
Well, I've definitely done like the drunk like text from out of nowhere just to see if you maybe.
I've had my drunk moments, plenty of times. Nowadays, if I'm drinking or doing whatever. And there's something that's bothering me, I'll like actively I'll put my phone on airplane mode and be like, no.
I'm cutting this off.
I've done it plenty of times before where like I've learned my lesson where I'm like, no, not happening.
Yeah, you'll just go on your Twitter and yell into the void.
Yeah, that's that's the healthy way. That's the healthy outlet.
That's the healthy.
Because then you're not bothering anybody else.
So your stalker can find it.
The stalker can read whatever they want. Let them have it.
All right. What?
Well, another scene I wanted to talk about too was the one when Jack tells Miles that first off your ex-wife's coming to the wedding. He's like, okay, I know. Yeah, it's all good. I'm okay with it.
All right.
Yeah,
I prepared myself for this.
We've all been there where it's like especially if like your ex gets involved with your social circle, it's like man, I'm gonna have to deal with that, and you want to like be cool about it, so you're like, okay, all good, I'm not tripping. But then the moment that breaks him, it's broken me before too. It's sent me down a spiral. It's like she's seeing somebody else now. She remarried.
Yeah.
And then he just grabs a bottle and runs off.
Oh my God, is there nothing worse than seeing a happy couple? Ugh.
A happy couple, okay, whatever, I don't give a shit. But dating somebody or pursuing somebody in any way, and then
seeing them be
ending
happy.
fruitless, and then months, weeks, years down the line, being like, oh, now they're with somebody in a serious relationship, and you can't help but just hate the person that they're with, hate the guy or girl in question, and just like fuming over it.
And then you just say the guy's name like Steve. like that was the point that made me laugh when he was on the phone and she's like, what's his name? Ken. And then he just says Ken. He says it like super drawn out. It made me dude, that's fucking hilarious because not without getting into personal details, like we've done that before, joking around and just like saying the person's name, being like, "Oh, Frank."
Yeah, it's just something about it. Like even if you really are. Like, I mean, everybody wants to be, pretend whether they are or not. Like, just put up a facade or the shield. Like, oh, I'm over it. I don't give a shit. Whoever they're with,
care.
I could care less. Good for them. Good for them.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Hey. Good for you.
But there is something that kind of like bites about it.
Yeah.
It can be. It's a little bit of a
it's
a toxic feeling when
it's seeing someone else happy when you're miserable.
Well, it's not just seeing just anybody else happy.
I mean
seeing your ex move on easily and be with somebody else and be what you thought it could be or what it should have been or what it once was, and now it's not you. There was somebody else, and you're just kind of left there, empty-handed. With nothing going for
drinking
you.
Drinking a fine wine out of a styrofoam cup.
Well, that's what I see in this film is just like, a broken-hearted person, trying to assert themselves in some way in the world and find new love in an older age too, where it's more difficult, and kind of being lost and kind of being at the end of your rope and just being like, well, I guess there's nothing for me. I'm a failure in my passions and I'm a failure in my love life. And here I am with absolutely nothing to show for pursuing these two passions. Let me ask you this.
It's useful for me in editing, all right?
Okay, that's all right. Let me ask you this.
Cut.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Why do you think this movie is called Sideways? Why do you think that's the name? Because that's an interesting name for this movie, right?
Yeah. Maybe because
The movie is about wine, right? And the movie poster is the bottle on the side with like little characters inside of it. So the first thing that comes to mind in thinking about that is that like the more you drink a bottle, like at first a bottle's full and you only have to tip it a little bit to get a pour.
Yeah.
But the more you drink a bottle, the more empty it becomes and the more sideways you have to turn the bottle.
Yeah, maybe.
So, I guess what I'm trying to get to is, what do you think the metaphor is there in applying that to the love story that's being told here, the romance? Where is Miles and Jack both gone sideways? Like, Jack is, I think, a little bit easier to explain. Like, he's obviously not ready to settle down. He wants to,
It's someone who was complacent learning to be free, and then someone who's free learning to be complacent. Right? That's basically what the two characters are. I mean...
And they both become weathered because of that.
Right. And I think
they both become a little empty. Now
that I'm thinking about it, you know what I think sideways means? I think it means like, just being lost, because I think both of these characters are lost. I think that's like the obvious, takeaway is like, they're both just lost and they're like aimless almost, right? Like one's like, a washed up actor. One's like a never made it, writer. And you feel like you've maybe just, kind of like, you've kind of just pissed away parts of your life.
Yeah.
And I think, going sideways means maybe, like when you say sideways, like, oh man, shit went sideways. Maybe it's like, life kind of just didn't end up the way you expected it to, know? Yeah. And I'm depressed now.
This movie is weirdly bittersweet. The ending is very bittersweet because I was thinking about this in one of the, before Jack gets married, the conversation that they have at the bridge. Miles, quotes some author talking about being a smudge on a skyscraper, just a bit of excrement in the sewer, you know.
Skid mark on the underwear of society.
Exactly. And his friend turns to him and he was like, "That's great. I can't write anything like that." And he's like, "I didn't write it. It's somebody else."
Yeah.
And then, you know, the topic of suicide comes up and he's like, "Well, I don't have anything to show for myself yet, and I'm not ready to kill myself until I do have some statement left behind to show for who I was or what I thought, or, you know, just to leave some mark on the world." You know, but what's interesting is when he leaves his friend's wedding, I think he commits some type of metaphorical, figurative suicide when he drinks his 1961 Chateau. Yeah, like he drinks that bottle. Let me see if I can find what it's called. But he drinks that bottle out of the styrofoam cup in the fast food restaurant, like the most like unpresentable way to, like, your best bottle of wine. You don't want to just, it's called the 1961 Chateau Cheval Blanc, and
Chateau Cheval Blanc.
Yeah, it would mean like a
damn. I was actually surprised how well I nailed that.
Not bad. White Horse House, something like that.
Okay.
He drinks it in the most unceremonious way by drinking it out of the styrofoam cup in the fast food restaurant, like a bottle that he tells Maya, "I'm saving this for a special occasion with a special person."
And a special occasion,
you know, and she keeps telling him it's peaked, it's past its prime, it's past its prime, it's peaked. You need to drink that now, you know. And he leaves you know, Jack gets married in the church. They go off to the reception. He leaves and he, you know, goes away from them. Jack never returns in the movie, and he opens that bottle in a fast food restaurant to drink out of a styrofoam cup. I felt like that was some type of like figurative, metaphorical suicide. Him finally cracking open his most prized bottle to drink in a very kind of defeated way, and out of the most, you know, the worst way you could drink the best wine you've ever had, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you know, I thought that was, you know, but it is bittersweet because there is that moment of him kind of just giving up and being like, "Fuck it, I'm just going to drink this bottle here out of my Slurpee cup."
Yep.
But it is bittersweet because then he goes back home and there's a voicemail from Maya saying, "Hey, I read your script, the one that went unpublished," and he had admitted to her, "I read it and I really liked it, and, you know, you should come back here and we should hang out."
Yeah.
and he returns and he knocks on the door and it cuts there. You know, so it is a very bittersweet ending in that he did not achieve his goals creatively. It didn't end with him all of a sudden getting published. It didn't end with him partying with Jack at the reception.
Right.
There was no like grand win for him, but there was like a little slimmer of hope left for him there in his love life, which is what I think the movie's main story is about, is the romance and his trials and tribulations with love. And he ends with like a slimmer of hope, being like, maybe there is someone out here who can, you know, see my full potential, see me for who I really am, and I can see that in them too. And I, you know, when he talks about his ex-wife,
we all got baggage. We all got baggage.
When he talks about his ex-wife Victoria with Jack, he's like, "I loved her because she knew so much about wine. She was passionate about what I was passionate about. She had a great palate." And then when he sees her at the wedding and he talks to her, she tells him, "Oh, I'm not drinking anymore. I wasn't really that into it." And granted, she is pregnant, for the record,
right?
You know, but still, it was kind of like one of those things where he's like, "Oh, you don't drink wine anymore? Like you're not into it anymore?" And it was kind of like she had moved on from, you know, the life they lived together. She was completely removed from it, you know, where with Maya, like, it was, the flame was still there, I guess, you know. So
do you want to get into our final thoughts?
Okay, there's a few last things I'd like to mention about this film. Right. One thing that I just think is funny is this movie was fairly popular when it was released.
Really?
Yeah, I remember like
this was definitely an indie movie when it came out, for sure. It was like a little
I was about 9 or 10 when this movie came out, and I remember my parents like specifically renting this one. So if my parents, who don't have a very good taste in movies in general, the two of them are very like they have a
Shade.
blind spot.
Shade.
They have a blind spot for film.
Oh.
If they were like
Oh.
watching this one where it came
Well,
out, like
maybe
this
it's
movie
because-
definitely made some waves when it
Yeah.
came out. But
The elitist son, Zachary. Oh, your mother and father have terrible taste in movies. They don't appreciate real cinema.
my dad just throws on John Wick, and my mom throws on the evening news. There's not a lot of cinema to discuss in that house.
All right, what else? What else do you want to bring up?
Well, first off, the hitching post where Miles brings
regulars,
Jack,
yeah.
where he regulars. It's a real restaurant, and after this movie came out, the restaurant had a huge uptick in traffic and
Hell yeah.
business.
Small business.
And and
Hell
they it's really in the city Buellton, and it became a fairly popular
That's
restaurant.
cool.
But what's even more interesting about this movie, and people call this the sideways effect. After this movie was released, there was a marked decline worldwide in the wine varial in Merlot. Merlot, because in one scene, Miles refuses to drink Merlot at the restaurant because his ex-wife Victoria liked Merlot. I think we've all had that. You have an ex or girl, a crush, who really likes something, and you're into it for a minute, and then when it falls apart, you can't listen to that song
Yeah,
again.
I mean,
the song you listen
literally-
to with your
literally-
ex, you can't hear it again,
Well,
or
literally-
whatever they're into, you're not into it anymore.
Yeah, you'll never watch the movie Scream ever again.
Never again.
Yeah.
But because his ex-wife drank Merlot, he will not drink Merlot. And, so when this movie came out, the sale of Merlot dropped markedly. And the sale the sale of Pinot Noir went up. The wine
damn.
the wine Miles is into,
Market
shot up.
manipulation.
It's called it's a real thing that's called the sideways effect. In fact, it's still somewhat of a trend to this day, where Merlot was a very, very popular varial pre 2004. Pinot Noir was not a very commonly drank red wine. The most popular red wine is Cabernet the Cabs, but Merlot was a close second, and because of this movie, Merlot dropped in popularity and Pinot Noir rose, and it's still holds a trend to this day.
Interesting. That's weird how a movie can do that.
Yeah, I know, right? I love wines. I'm still.
Well, think about this: the Lord of the Rings made New Zealand is interesting, and
Right.
everyone in New Zealand. What's funny is New Zealand, they still they milk it dry that the Lord of the Rings was filmed there. Still to this day,
We
that's
got Frodo Baggins here. Come through.
You want to come to Hobbiton? Whatever. But anyway.
All right, give
what
me your
else?
final thoughts.
All right, final thoughts.
Yeah, go for it.
All right.
That was it. What I had.
All right, you want to go first or me?
I'll go first here.
Yeah.
First off, I like this movie. I was gonna say I do like wine. I do. I still feel very
Amateurish.
amateurs compared to like other people
Your
I've
palate.
met that are into wine, or just like seeing how people in this film, like the film is like about wine culture. Like I don't know most of this stuff. I'm still very ignorant about a lot of it. Like I've drank enough wine where like I feel like I can identify like a cheap bottle of wine, although some cheap bottles of wine are good. Like I can identify a bad wine, a Yellowtail.
We were drinking $2 Chuck fucking daily.
We did buy what would we buy? La Crema Pinot Noir for this film.
Yeah.
If you're gonna watch this movie, you gotta buy a bottle of Pinot Noir.
Yeah.
Buy a good one.
Yeah.
Try to at least.
Yeah.
Sometimes you gotta throw down some money with wine. It's just the way it is.
Look, let's be honest. Most good wine is like in the $25 to $30 range.
That's what I've learned in my experiences of wine. Like there are some
$20 you can get some like decent good wine.
Well, when I first turned 21, I remember buying that Carlo Rossi. Oh my god, I cannot touch Carlo Rossi. It's so bad. Yeah, and like when we're in the store, you know, what did I see? Was it Gnarly Head? I won't drink that either. Like so, like
Gnarly Head.
or is it Boggle or Gnarly Head? I don't know. Boggle. The one with the tree and the roots going down. Yeah, that one I won't drink. I won't drink Yellowtail. I won't drink Barefoot. So like I have some taste developed, but there's still some cheap ones I'll drink, like the Trader Joe's brand Charles Shaw.
Shout out Charles Shaw.
Good.
Shout out Two Buck Chuck.
It's the best value wine on the market.
Shout out to the best value.
You know, so I like wines, and you know, I like this movie because it's like it kind of sheds light on a weird culture and a weird passion to pursue. Because with wines, like one thing I'll notice is like, you know, despite like, you know, some people get a really good bottle of wine, like wine enthusiasts will get it and they'll be like, oh my god, this wine's so good, wine's excellent. I have a very, very hard time. When I'm drinking good wines, I have a very hard time distinguishing, like, you know, you bring me, like, let's say, like a $20 bottle and a $50 bottle. I'll have a very, very hard time telling you which one's the more expensive one and
right.
Why, you know. So I'm still very ignorant on the topic, but it's fun. Like, wine is just a fun thing, and you know, I think this movie expresses that.
Feel
like,
fancy.
yeah,
you feel a little fancy. You get to drink it in a special glass, you know.
It's not just about the wine itself. It's about like the culture, the life behind it, and just like the fun you can have with it too.
I love taking out the cork.
That's
my favorite part. I like smelling the cork.
Smelling the cork, looking at it, looking at the color, looking how it, like, you know, runs on the glass.
It's living.
You know, it's living. It's a fun thing, you know, despite the fact that a lot of times, like, I cannot really tell the difference. Like, look, I'll admit, if you got, like, let's say a bottle of Pinot.
Well, think about it like this, all right? Remember after I went to that barrel tasting, right? I had like 8 like pretty expensive bottles of wine. And we drank them all, and you can tell the difference. Like if you drop money, yeah, you'll get a bottle of wine and you'll be like, "Whoa, okay, this is," cuz we were drinking like really good wine. You know, that's what made the last season of Game of Thrones tolerable, is that we had that wine for that.
I didn't watch a single episode of Game of Thrones past season 6 sober.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, you know, it is in a certain way when people are, it is kind of a work of art. There's a lot that goes into it, you know.
Yeah.
That's continue, sorry.
What I was going to say is I'll admit, like if you got a bottle of Pinot, a bottle of Merlot, and a bottle of Cab, I don't know if I could accurately, if you poured them out and gave it to me like a blind taste test, I don't know if I could tell you which one's the Pinot, which one's the Merlot, which one's the Cab.
Between red, white, and pink.
Well, obviously,
sorry.
It's all good. Cut. So I don't know if I could tell the difference. Like, I would like to think I could tell you which one's the Cab, Merlot, Pinot, but I'm not positive that I could. So it's not like one of those things where it's like all about just the taste and the flavor. It's more just like about the experience of it, and just like wine itself is just kind of this cool thing. I don't know what better word to use.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's
very cool. It's just it's pleasing. It's pleasing in a lot of ways that go past just the taste and just the senses. It's, you know, all the things about it, you know, the work it takes, the history behind it, the varieties of it. And I think that also is kind of what occurs here in terms of the romances in this film. Like, it's not just about the chase, it's not just about that. It's like everything else that goes into it is also kind of what makes the magic work, you know?
Yeah.
So I love how this movie crosses the passion for wine with the passion for love, and the end result of that. And I love how it mixes it with, you know, two characters with different approaches to life, one jaded, one a little bit more optimistic, but both washed up and both kind of failures, but still with their respective burning passions in them that they still want to pursue regardless of how fruitless it's been for them.
It's how two people have dealt with that feeling. One just chooses to, hey, there could always be another audition. There could always be another thing on the horizon. And one's just like, everything has failed up to this point, so why should I even try anymore?
Yeah, just giving up completely. Yeah, so but what's interesting is Jack isn't into the wines the way Miles is. Jack's just like whatever about it.
Like, yeah, this one
he doesn't think about it. Oh yeah, all of them taste good. Doesn't think about it. Where Miles,
I'm not gonna lie, that's how I am when I went wine tasting. And here's the thing. Sorry, derailment.
Go ahead.
Wine tasting. You're just getting drunk at the end of it, dude. If you're really wine tasting, you ain't drinking at all. Because like when I was doing it, I was having just like the samples, that they'll pour out for you. And you're just wasted at the end of it. So you're not really tasting it. You're kind of just, you're having and at a certain point, when do you I know it's probably a hack point at this point, but at a certain point you stop tasting it and you're just drinking wine for the fuck of it.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is whenever I'm drinking a bottle of wine, I'm like, man, it really does get better as you go along. And I'm like, I don't know if that's because it's getting aerated or if that's how I'm supposed to be drinking it, or if that's just because I'm drunk.
Yeah, it's because you're drunk.
Just because I'm drunk and it just tastes a little better when I'm drunk. You know?
What do you give it?
I would probably go with about, in its genre as a romantic comedy.
It's a fucking slug,
I would say it's a top tier romantic comedy. I can't think, maybe 40-Year-Old Virgin gets close to it.
40-Year-Old, that one's damn near one of those.
But it's maybe one of the best it's probably the best rom-com I've ever seen, and I don't watch that genre a lot. It's not something I'm into. In terms of this,
but weirdly, we like the same two rom-coms. we like this one, and we like what's the other
40-Year-Old Virgin?
No, Love Actually.
Love Actually. Oh, I like Love Actually. Love Actually.
Just at Christmas.
Just at Christmas seasonally.
Just at Christmas, it's seasonally.
Anyways,
but yeah, it's not something that you normally it's literally just for these two.
I mean, in comparison to the other movies we've watched, it holds weight and it holds ground with the other films we've watched, but so grading it on the scale of what we've been doing so far, I would probably put it at about 7. So, a light 7, maybe like a 6.75.
All right, now you're just
6 and a quarter.
Now you're just splitting hairs.
6 and 3/4.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. So I don't know. I see it as this movie is dealing with failure, dealing with the feeling that your life hasn't really amounted to much. But
hold on. One quick interjection.
Go for it.
I don't know if necessarily at the beginning, maybe that's the vibe that's given off to about Miles, but as the movie progresses, it shows that he does have something that he's really good at. That he does have something that people connect with, and that's his passion and love.
Yeah, but
for wine.
most of the time, he's just being a middle school teacher. That's the reality of life.
I mean, I guess in his day-to-day life, but the movie where the story takes place is all about him and his passion for the wine.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And that passion comes to fruition at the end because he connects with Maya on that, and that's the movie ends with them having a connection. So it does. So at the end, his passions do kind of come to fruition in some way, not in the way he necessarily saw.
Yeah.
Through the writing pursuits, but it's through this pursuit of
wine.
Yeah.
And love.
Yeah. Well, hold on. One quick thing. What I was gonna say about their different approaches, where Jack's slamming it and being like, "Yeah, it's good. I love it. Give me more."
It.
And Miles is taking his time to truly figure it out and experience it and like really get into all the little things, they have the same approach with their love life. Jack's just like, go and smash real quick, slam it.
You sound like a bank robber. Go in, smash in and out.
Yeah, well, that's Jack's attitude. Where Miles takes his time. He's got to feel it out. He's got to sniff it out and like really experience it and understand it before he really, accepts it.
Indulges.
Into his heart or whatever. Go ahead. Oh, I'll give you something to work with there. I know you're struggling a bit here. Go ahead.
No. It's not that I'm struggling. It's just literally I'm fucking tired of shit. Cut.
We all are.
Anyway, cut.
Don't cut there.
Cut.
Leave it.
No.
Leave it. I just got back from Yosemite.
Anyway. I can see a lot of myself in the Miles character as far as just feeling like, just kind of having like the hopelessness feeling. I think that's, a super relatable feeling. And it's just like, how do you get out of feeling hopeless? How, it's not like you can just find hope one day. It's like you kind of like, you pursue a passion maybe, and then maybe that follows, I think that's a good message. I like that. It's not corny. It's not corny at all. The movie, like the dialogue in this movie is like, it's good. You know what I mean? It's not super predictable. It's just like, and it's just like it is. It's just like a fun movie. There's not like, it's not, there are some layers.
You mentioned this is one of your dad's favorites.
Yeah,
I thought that was cool.
Yeah, and I think that's like being cynical. It's like you don't just come to being cynical. It's being cynical means that you've gone through a lot of pain and you've felt like shit a lot. And the thing is that you just let that twist, and kind of gnarl up, your life and
your life perspective.
Right. Yeah. You let that color your life perspective, and then in a way it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because you're so cynical and you're so,
jaded.
Yeah, and see the thing is the parts where he lets loose, like like everyone, he's charming, I see that a lot in myself, Exactly. It's like if I let loose and I let go of like, just like all the shit that fucking keeps me up and fucking upset, I think it's just let go, That's I think like something that really. I can really fuck with.
So you're saying, because you kept bringing this up in the watching of it, you're saying what you take away is to live more in the moment rather than dwelling.
Yeah, because I think I think it's like he's not just cynical for no reason. He's cynical because he. Like everything in life is just kind of shit, and even like the thing that he was hoping for, like the book deal, that falls through. Mm-hmm. He has every reason to be cynical. Being a cynical person, it's not just with one thing. It's like it's a gradual breakdown because everyone, I feel like a lot of people are just naturally optimistic, right?
You think?
Yeah, no, I honestly do. They at least start off. They start off optimistic, right?
Yeah.
Like you're young, you have a lot of, aspirations maybe, and your whole life's ahead of you, but you're like, what if something bad happens and then you're just kind of you're middle-aged, you're stuck at a part of your life where you're just like, what the fuck do I go, where do I go from here? What do I do? I'm trying to pursue something, but something's never it just hasn't happened. It just hasn't happened yet. And I kind of feel like I'm at I don't feel like old. I know I was making the joke, but like, it makes you feel a little bit older, but I'm kind of at a part in my life where like I'm like, I'm thinking about like switching jobs because I'm sick of where I work at. It's I don't know, a lot of this shit just connects. You know, for you, like you said, yeah, and in the category of movies it's in, it's definitely towards the top. The performances are good between the main two actors. The female actors are good as well. They're.
I think the 4 co-stars are all around pretty
Sure,
solid.
yeah, but it's really led by the two, by the two guys because it's the dynamic between them that's the most interesting. You know what I mean? It's like two competing ideologies, but like, Jack should be cynical, he's just doing like commercials. Is that really what he became an actor for? Just do
voiceovers?
Right, but he's still optimistic. You know what I mean? In every part where, he talks about like, he's like, why don't we buy a vineyard? And you can run it, and if you're inspired, you write another book, and and it's just like, sometimes, you can be too optimistic for sure, but if you're not optimistic at all, then you're just kind of stuck.
Mm-hmm. Hopeless.
Yeah. Kind of depressing, but kind of, like you said, bittersweet. And I think that's a good feeling. You don't want to feel too good. You don't want to end a movie and just feel like, oh, isn't that nice? It leaves
and
off
rom-coms always end like that at a wedding.
Some cheese dick bullshit, and you're just like, no. But this is, it doesn't show any like overly like, lovey-dovey shit. It's like a dude like struggling with his own inner demons, and I think that's a very relatable story just for anybody really, like dealing with past traumas and fucking bullshit. I probably give this movie, I probably give it about like a 7.5.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Like a solid 7. Yeah, no, I've always liked this movie. It's not the one that I would watch like a bunch of times, but it's one where I'm like, I'll watch this one every once in a while.
Yeah, this is like either my second or third viewing of it.
Right. It's one I enjoy every once in a while, where it's just like, if you're, if you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend seeing it. It's just a nice movie. I like it. Yeah.
It's another deep cut rom-com?
What?
Wedding Singer. It's an emo classic.
Emo classic?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. All right, well,
I put that up there with the other one we met, 40-Year-Old Virgin.
40-Year-Old Virgin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like 2 bags of sand.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I would say the message of this movie is indulge that love sickness and indulge that wine.
Yeah.
Baby.
And, keep listening to our creative pursuit.
Okay.
Was that a good sell?
Sure.
Good
enough, I guess.
I don't like that. All right, well, that's going to do it for us this week. We're out of here. Peace.
Thank you for listening.